Our superhero spotlight for this week is on one Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, who is definitely, I think he became a meta internet superhero way before most other mainstream ones did.
His progression, I can't wait to hear about this. His progression is really fascinating. He wasn't as, I think his popularity is on the wane.
I think maybe it's almost like they're making the movie too late, which the movie will be out soon at the time.
And the movie
of this recording.
looks fucking perfect.
It pretty much
I
does,
saw
at
a
least
clip
in the
from it this
trailers.
week. It just shows Ryan Reynolds' ass, and what's her name from Firefly makes a joke about putting it in her butt, and like it's such an un-Marvel movie. At this point that I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's being made by Fox, right?
But Deadpool was
Fox
around.
film,
Deadpool was around for fucking ever, and no one said shit about him.
No, he was around for, he first appeared in 1990 in New Mutants 98, and he is a co-creation of, I hope I don't mess up his name, Fabian Nicieza and Rob Liefeld. So the story went that Rob Liefeld he's, especially then, he was just a guy who's like, I drew a cool character, can we put him in a comic? And so he drew Deadpool, which is a cool design, which hasn't changed a whole lot since his first appearance.
Red, black, white eyes.
But he also has the standard Rob Liefeld over accessorizing, and that he has pouches everywhere, guns, double swords on his back, knives, and just ripped off Spider-Man's mask. And it's just, but it's such a cool outfit. And then when he showed him
I'm not tired of that Deadpool cosplayer who does silly things at cons.
There's dozens of those. They're all great. But so
I assumed it was one guy like fucking Santa Claus. I'm a moron.
When Fabian saw that character, he said, oh, well, he looks a lot like Deathstroke from the Teen Titans books. And let's just be silly.
Who does what? Is like a mercenary with guns.
Yeah, it was a mercenary with guns and swords. He's all those things that Deadpool is. So Fabian was like, well, let's just be funny with him then. We'll even call him Wade Wilson. Deathstroke's real name is Slade Wilson. So Wade Wilson, and he was just supposed to be a one-off character of a group of mercenaries hired to kill Cable. That's all it was. That's all he was supposed to be. He worked alongside, guys like Domino and Killbrew and Kane.
It's crazy that they needed a group to kill Cable. Right now, Netflix killed Cable.
Oh my god! Oh my god, dude, that was great.
So that was his first appearance, and they kind of popped up again. New Mutants by '98. New Mutants ends in issue 100 and is rebooted as X-Force, which until Amazing Spider-Man 1 was the best-selling Marvel #1 of all time.
Really, X-Force number?
Yeah, it broke a million. It was the first to break a million, and it was also Rob Liefeld because he was. We all joke about him now, but he was one of him or Jim Lee were the first, or Todd McFarlane, first mega superstar artists.
Why do we joke about him now?
Because he's a bad artist who can't draw feet, who puts pouches on everything, who if you just spend a minute looking closely at any of his panels, you're like, oh, I flashed through these as a little kid, but this musculature is all wrong. A woman's back doesn't bend this way. He purposefully didn't draw feet in this because he's no good at that. Or there's one, a classic one is just like, he drew a gun in this kid's hand because he thought it would look cool, but the hand is all wrong. Like
I sympathize when I love to draw hands and feet, man. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
But then he kind of took off on his own. Like Fabian then did a series he did a mini-series without Rob Liefeld, instead with Joe Madureira. And this is when Rob Liefeld had left and started doing Youngblood, so he wasn't around to do it. But Joe Mad was a big-time artist at his time, too. He's on the rise. He would later go on to do Darksiders series. So he was a great fit for him. It was a more cartoony look, and Deadpool's own adventures got set up as a mix of silly and mega violent. And it also set up some of his first enemies as Juggernaut and Black Tom were his two big enemies. And that's when we started finally getting some of his origin story, which, surprise, surprise, a character in the 90s was tied to Weapon X again, because that was the cool thing. Weapon X was cool. Which
that was retroactively then.
This was retroactive because he was just a guy who fought Cable. He had barely any character. He's just like, we couldn't do Deathstroke, so we made up Deadpool, and he fights Cable. You're supposed to forget him by the end of this issue. Now
do you know where his name comes from? It's not that Dirty Harry movie.
Well,
Starring
this is the retroactive history of the character too. So he was a mercenary in Canada, very skilled. Finds out he has cancer. And I think we're going to see this in the movie too.
You're absolutely going to see the movie.
No, I mean this will be the plot of the movie.
It is. Yeah, I mean, but like, yes, it's been in the trailers and the clips and stuff.
So he gets cancer. He applies for a program that could maybe fix it because it's terminal. And it's Weapon X, and he's a human. He is not a mutant. But they're like, we're trying to learn how to give Wolverine's healing powers to somebody else. And they test it on him, and it seemingly doesn't work, but it really fucks up his body. And so then they just send him to like a hospice ward that also is like doing Frankenstein type tests on people there. And when he's there, they try to kill him, and that's when his superpowers start up. But he was friends with people there in the hospice, and they had a joke of like, who's gonna die first? Let's have a Deadpool on who's gonna die first. And so after he survives that place and leaves, he's like, you know what, from now on I am Deadpool.
But yes, cancer survivor. I don't know if that's...
What is it that made him such a jerk though?
Well, he's not a jerk.
No,
he just doesn't give a fuck.
Oh, also all the experiments on him messed with his head big time. Like they tested him like, well, how is your healing power? Let's cut into your brain. And also just the experiment itself to give him try and give him Wolverine's powers fucked with his head too. And that's why he started as just wacky, but by the late 90s he had become a guy who was just like, I know I'm in a comic book and I will talk directly to the reader and break the fourth wall and have competing monologues going on.
Is this in his own book, or is this still in...
This started in his own book. So this is when it came together. So Deadpool also...
He did emerge popular in X-Force.
He wasn't that popular. He was popular
I don't remember. I don't know where his popularity took off from. I remember encountering him in a ton of the X-Men books that I read, but no one was talking about it.
I charted it as best I could. So in 94, he got his own miniseries. He got a second miniseries in 96 written by Mark Waid, which sold... well enough. Mark Waid is not. He said he was not a good fit for Deadpool when he did it.
Does seem weird
because he's too he's just completely blameless, and Mark Waid is all about making characters pay.
I've always called Deadpool. I remember pitching this a long time ago. The perfect video game character.
Exactly,
because he doesn't. We don't need him to be invested to be a hero.
Quite honestly, I think that was the turning point for him. But we'll get to that. And so after the Mark Waid in a book, then he finally got his own ongoing series written by Joe Kelly with art by Ed McGuinness, who both would go on to be big time stars, but this was kind of their first book for a major publisher. And as Joe Kelly, to paraphrase Joe Kelly, they thought they were going to be canceled almost every issue. They're like, we're on the verge of cancellation all the time. Screw it. Let's just do whatever silly thing we want to do. And they got more referential, more parodic, more satirical, to the point where they did one issue. I remember he just goes back in time to an issue of Amazing Spider-Man. Like now he's in Amazing Spider-Man 55, and he's just like, they just drew him into the panels. And there's this hilarious bit where it made sense in the mid 60s that Mary Jane was just such a cool girl. She's like, Aunt May, turn on the radio. I want to dance. And then she just starts dancing.
Those dancing panels from those 60s comics, they were so prevalent. Here, watch the pose, Henry.
Yep.
I'm twisting my feet. Yes.
And then Deadpool's reaction, they're like, this girl just, is she okay? She's just dancing. What is going on here? And it was just such a fun, silly book, but it also felt like a secret book. You tell other friends, like, oh, you should read this. Nobody else is reading this. Nobody's reading Deadpool. It wasn't that popular. It did go like... It went on long enough for Joe Kelly to leave the book, and then Christopher Priest, who's one of my favorite writers too, aka Priest, his claim to fame is that he wrote the book The Prestige that got made into a movie. Wow. But he also did Quantum and Woody and a bunch of other comics.
I really like that book. Keep meaning to read more of it.
And then Gail Simone took over the book after him.
Really?
But then to show you how unpopular Deadpool it was at that time, they rebooted all the X-Men books around when Gail Simone came on. And they just took his name off it. They're like, no, it's called Agent X now. And Wade Wilson is this guy named Agent X. It's a total concept reboot that's more... It sounded like it was more serious than...
Weird.
That they wouldn't want Deadpool's name on a book. He's crazy. They're like, man,
it seems crazy, but I looked into it one time. It just looked like that Deadpool was popular internally. more popular internally than he was externally, and so it looks like someone had a shitload of faith in him for a very long time.
Well, also when you look at Deadpool, he's a 90s joke. Like, that's his outfit. And by 1999 or 2000, you don't want to have a retro-looking guy. It's not cool. You want to be cool and Matrixy, brah, and call him Agent X and put him in leather.
I'm just baffled when he became the character he is now, which is mega popular.
I think the turn... Well, so Joe Kelly definitely set the tone. And the Deadpool we came to love is... started with Joe Kelly's Deadpool.
Sure.
So then cut to 2004, Deadpool kind of gets a reboot or return to form because Fabian and also kind of Rob Liefeld take back over the character and do a series called Cable and Deadpool.
And that's what literally reintroduced me to, into comics again, because I thought that was fucking... It was beautiful. It had... Cable is synonymous with me to colorful 90s X-Men. I don't know, I think he might embody everything about that era of X-Men.
Well, he's a cyborg from the future with
who's
huge
also
guns.
with huge guns, who's also related to the two main X-Men. It's ridiculous. He's the Trunks of the X-Men universe.
Exactly.
And,
anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but then he's really cool. I would have bought a book with Cable on it. But Cable and Deadpool, my friend was like, "Yeah, I'm just reading Cable and Deadpool." And what the fuck is that? Sounds like the dumbest thing. Open it up and from within 2 pages, this is great. This is genius. How did you come up with this combination?
Well, the Cable and Deadpool are great because they and they're forever tied. Deadpool was introduced as a guy who was supposed to kill Cable, and so just. Cable is so self-serious and Deadpool is the complete opposite. They're the original odd couple. But that book ended up not... It also waned in popularity enough that they just took Deadpool's name off. They're like, it's Cable now. It's just Cable. And it kept going. And I think it was around this time that the video games really picked up Cable. The video games really picked up Deadpool. He appeared in X-Men Legends 2. He appeared in multiple... he appeared in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 eventually, but that was later. But it was in the late...
The Legend series or the Alliance series?
And Alliance. First, Legends came first. He was in Legends 2, then he was in Alliance. And he also was an enemy in the X-Men Origins Wolverine game, too, which we'll get to that. But I think that's when gamers kind of recognized him as a postmodern dude who was just wacky, who just said funny shit, and also had awesome swords and had a healing factor, and he joked about his own popularity. He was a postmodern hero for the internet age.
I thought I made a little pitch of him being the perfect game character because his motivation is not heroism or even progression. He's having the same kind of fun the player is supposed to be having every time he interacts with something
on a almost sociopathic level.
Totally,
but
totally. But that's he will kill anybody in any way as long as it's funny, as long as it's amusing to him as a player of violent games. Yes, that's what I'd like. That's what I'd like to do.
And also, he can talk directly to the player too.
Yeah, he talks directly to you. So I think it's partially that, just I don't know, a reverence for violence.
Yeah, and it's fun. So let's talk about his powers real quick too. He only has one power really, which is indestructibleness. Technically, you could cut his head off, and if you just threw it a football field away, he'd be dead. But you gotta If he can reattach his head, then it will sew back. But he can't grow a new head. He will grow a new arm, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know the extremes they've taken him to.
I thought he could. I never read an entirety of a series until Daniel Way's.
Yeah, so I think that was when the ball really started in comics of Deadpool. I think that was when the Marvel publisher realized Deadpool could sell books. So right when Secret Invasion happened, a new Deadpool book happened. Every time there's a new mega crossover, they usually launch a few books tied into it. Deadpool got his own, and Daniel Way was the writer on it, and it was when he introduced the 3 voiceover people for him, the super crazy one, Deadpool, and the smart guy. Yeah, and they're all just talking all the time, and he gets to kill a bunch of Skrulls, and that's a lot of fun. But it also peppers in some of the minor tragedy about the character too, because he's a sad guy too who hates how ugly he is.
It's one of my favorite moments from Secret Invasion that the Skrulls want to steal his regeneration power and okay, you got it, but you also have my cancer, which works in conjunction with my regenerative powers. It's how I don't die, because my cancer reproduces so fast, or something like that. So now you all have a shit ton of cancer.
Here's just all your tumors on you right now.
I thought it was really funny, but kind of showed you how his powers works, maybe a little differently than other people. That they work in conjunction with his like horrific cancer.
And he also
which is having a great year right now.
Oh boy!
But he's also super skilled in guns and martial arts, and because of his healing factor, not unlike Wolverine and Captain America's, it means he can build cells better. Like he's better than any Olympic athlete, and though he's not like he couldn't punch out Spider-Man or the Hulk or anything, but he can jump faster, run longer, and pick up heavier things and hit harder too. Plus, he usually has some sort of teleportation tech. Though in his most recent appearance, they changed it up that he has an enslaved Bamf, which are
little
badass motherfucker.
Yes,
Nightcrawler mice.
Yeah, like Nightcrawler mice that just
rodents.
takes him around. And so yeah, Daniel Way kind of really changed how he was in the books, and he started getting so popular to the point that he had multiple ongoing series, and there was even like a parody of the Green Lantern Corps stuff that was doing so good in the mid 2000s. They do the Deadpool Corps where he teams up with Deadpools across the multiverse. It was Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it was really because he was popular with me, and I didn't know that. I guess I knew you guys, and you guys didn't talk much about Deadpool. I liked him. Wasn't in love with him, and then I go to like my first con and like, dude, this guy has like as much merchandise as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
At this point, like here's a squirrel and a panda, Dead Girl. The
head that's just
there's a dinosaur head. Like a ton of Deadpool stuff, and the amount since we've started this show, the amount of like what would you call them 4-issue run Deadpool.
Oh yeah, just one-offs.
Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. Deadpool kills Deadpool. Deadpool Illustrated, where he goes into popular fiction of the turn of the century and kills Huck Finn.
Wow.
Deadpool versus Hawkeye was another really good one too.
Yes, and I keep meaning to pick up Deadpool and Spider-Man.
And it's also when he started appearing in team books too, because he then got into X-Force and Thunderbolts, which it was almost like how Spider-Man just became a member of the Avengers due to popular demand, even though it had been written for so long. Like, this person isn't a team player. They shouldn't be on a team. They kind of have to write around that.
He did have a short cycle in the like finally being allowed into the X-Men, I believe, in the Utopia period.
Well, so in Thunderbolts, it was this funny. Thunderbolts was one of my favorites. It's not a great book, the Thunderbolts.
The combination of characters.
Yeah, to see him,
Venom, Punisher, Red Hulk.
Venom, Punisher, Red Hulk, Elektra, and Deadpool. And that Venom is just a soldier. He doesn't like Deadpool. Deadpool's annoying most of the straight-laced dudes on the team, especially Punisher. But then Deadpool's got a crush on Elektra, but then Punisher and Elektra then just have a like fuck buddies thing going on their own thing. And then Punisher Deadpool threatens Punisher, and then Punisher puts a gun to his head. And it's one of my favorite Deadpool lines where Punisher's got Deadpool dead to rights. Then Deadpool says like, you know what? You will kill me first, but I guarantee you I will kill you last. And it was just, I like that exchange there.
Yeah.
And now Deadpool's bigger than ever in the comics. Marvel, all new, all different, is all about Deadpool. Like
weird.
He has multiple books. He has his own book. He has the miniseries with him teaming up with Spider-Man, which I loved. It was the first issue anyway. It was so great. He's a member of Steve Rogers' Avengers, and I like it's kind of a meta commentary there too, where Steve Rogers is bankrolling the Avengers via Deadpool merchandise.
Yes, yeah,
it's great,
and that has to be a commentary on the state of things.
Yeah.
We talk a whole lot about like Marvel and the X-Men universe being very weird, but they killed Wolverine. Nothing has diminished with Deadpool, and they don't own him.
Yeah, it is funny that the guy they can't get in the movie, like they're making a Deadpool movie. Yeah. But I wonder if they do have the merch rights to him. I wonder.
Maybe that's part of it.
I also wonder if it's because you mentioned. I said at the beginning, I used to think he was a mutant. He is not.
Oh, he's not.
Because he's a regular guy who was experimented on. And I wondered
I always hate these semantic arguments.
Well,
Spider-Man's a mutant. Just get used to it.
There was a joke in Squirrel Girl a few issues ago about how she used to be called a mutant, and then her mom said, "Oh no, she's not a mutant. She's legally distinct from a mutant." I did really like the Deadpool book with Brian Posehn that Brian Posehn and Jerry Duggan wrote with Tony Moore on the art, which he's the co-creator of The Walking Dead. Yeah. And it's a really funny book.
The litigious Tony Moore.
Yeah, him and those guys are friends now. He did a cover for, well, I think they're at least mutually advantageous relationship, and Tony Moore probably got his Skrilla, but he did a special cover for 150. So obviously a guy who is still suing Robert Kirkman might not draw a comic cover for him.
Just give me some money, Bob.
But Brian Posehn did a lot of great work on it, as not to diminish Jerry Duggan, who is now still the writer on it. Brian Posehn finally is like, oh wait, I could make millions of dollars. I'm just going to go over here.
And he started a movie over the Christmas holidays, and he's written his own comics for Image and stuff.
Yeah,
and
he did the Santa Claus one.
I have to imagine in his position, a lot less pressure than an ongoing at one of the biggest comic companies.
And he did it for years. Like, Posehn worked on it for years.
About 3 years.
And then when it comes to Deadpool, so that's where Deadpool's at now in the comics. When it's outside of the comics, Deadpool
he's now
everywhere.
The head of the Avengers, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, known as Heroes for Hire. But, I'm sorry, I have not read a lot of the most current issues of Deadpool.
But on top of him starring in his own movie soon, it's also he starred in his own video game, and he on top of like multiple cameo appearances, he starred in his own video game, which in most of his game appearances, he's usually played by one Nolan North. And they actually...
He's one of the few that cross over from the Capcom games into the Activision
different
games.
companies hire him. They're just like, oh, we still want this guy. We
Deadpool.
still
Pineapple!
And so the Deadpool game's it's not great. And it's not worth $50. Do not pay $50 for it on PS4. But it's a fine little funny thing. And it's fun to experience. And especially, I think they do front load it with the best jokes, including, I did want to play this. This is Deadpool talking to Nolan North at the start of the game.
Nolan, hey, what's up, buddy? We're making a game about me. Gotta have you do the VO, man. I mean, see, here's the thing. People tell me we sound alike.
That sounds awesome, Deadpool. Listen, I had a different take on it. Maybe we just make you, maybe it's an alternative type of Deadpool. It's somebody...
Yeah, well, fuck you, Nolan.
Boom. Fuck you, Nolan. Just him saying that to himself. I love that.
Yeah,
so
that's probably what all voice actors say under their breath as they lose jobs to Nolan North in the video game industry.
He's great in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as well, and I hope he doesn't disappear again. He was barely in the cartoons. I was looking that up too. Like, when was he in the 90s? He had like non-speaking roles on a couple of the X-Men animated series episodes, like just in flashes of stuff. I think because in the 90s, maybe they deemed him too violent, or he was just too obscure, but they weren't putting him in any cartoons. It wasn't until the 2000s he got to be in animated shows. Like, he was on an episode of Ultimate Spider-Man. It's the Ultimate Deadpool episode, not voiced by Nolan North, but North does voice him in the Hulk versus Wolverine cartoon, where he teams up. It's all of Weapon X fights Wolverine.
I just threw that away.
I took it out of your garbage.
They're terrible.
Yeah, it's great.
Speaking of non-speaking roles for Deadpool, why was he basically jobbed out of what is it, X-Men Origins of Wolverine?
I am baffled by what I'm seeing in the new movie.
Yeah.
That A, they're continuing with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
And B, they're redoing that doesn't seem to exist. Because they're showing scenes of him being wheeled in and...
Yeah, though the film wouldn't exist if Ryan Reynolds wasn't making it. Like, he seemed to be the real creative force on it. And just the whole thing of oops, somebody leaked the test footage. How'd that happen?
Very Deadpool thing to do.
Exactly. I think it was either the producers or just Fox themselves just did an accidental test screening. And then by the next Comic-Con, they're like, oh, here's the real trailer with most of what we showed you last year, or you saw last year. And yeah, it's got this sense of humor. It's R-rated like it has to be.
It's crazy.
He murdered Mario Lopez in one of the ads for it.
There's no official reason that he was so chumpy in that movie.
Nobody really explains it.
Because Marvel wasn't involved and no one gave a fuck about the characters. They heard they had a popular character named Deadpool.
Yeah.
We have an actor named Ryan Reynolds. Let's see during the writer's strike if we can make this script work for us.
That is also the problem with the film, is that it was made during the writer's strike. Who knows if it would have been slightly better if the writers hadn't struck during it.
The movie is terrible for a billion other reasons, but third of them, if you were in there to see a Deadpool in a movie, holy shit, was that bad.
Though to another degree, if you were there to see Gambit in a movie, nope, you're not getting anything.
He flies his Cessna for a little bit.
Yeah, and he gets jobbed out to Chris Antista's Sabretooth.
Yes. Who I am now fatter than that guy. It's I look older than him now.
So anyway, that is the superhero spotlight for one Mr. Wade Wilson. So I hope you've learned a whole lot about him. Mr. Wade Wilson. So I hope you've learned a whole lot about him.